This is not related to Ethereum in any way. I'm letting lean Ethereum just handle that, and I'm advising them. But I talked to Justin Drake. I let him know my opinion. I think that they should have proven cryptography instead of a brand new snark over lattice that is just now being built. I'm doing the same thing for Bitcoin and other projects. I'm co-founder of Surmount Systems, which is doing BIP 360. I'm co-author of BIP 361, which is basically saying someday your private key is going to not be secure. The problem here is that when other people try to solve for quantum risk, they're typically doing some kind of hybrid cryptography because there's a data problem. And Quantum AVM just bit the bullet and said, we're going to deal with the data problem instead of trying to deal with a new hybrid system that may not be done well. There is hybrid cryptography used right now in your Chrome browser. It's used on Cloudflare. It's used in Signal. And the good way to do this is through one of the hybrid standards like MLChem or MLDSA that has then also an elliptic curve attached. The most common is MLChem 25. They call it 768, but it also uses the ED25519 curve. And they split the key in half. Half is encrypted, half the AES key is encrypted using the elliptic curve, and half of the AES key is encrypted using MLChem. You need both halves to crack the system, and classical attacks would still require a very, very, very long time against the AES. So this is generally regarded as secure. And that's what I would recommend doing if that's what you need to solve for. The problem is that this hybrid cryptography is very, very new. There is not a good standard. The NIST has actually been taken over by the NSA. Everybody who works at the NIST has NSA on their resume. And they're advising against hybrid cryptography. They're saying, oh, just go with the lattice. You can trust it. It's so trustable. You should trust it with everything and don't use any other cryptography ever. And that makes a lot of people nervous. The lack of standardization means that everybody's doing crazy stuff and it's not being examined well before it's being implemented. There's implementation mistakes. There's just cognitive dissonance regarding what should be done versus the way that it's actually being done. So the first one that makes very clear mistakes is QANX. I have ranted at their CTO, who has only had one job in tech, and that is CTO of the same project that has not had a testnet after 7 years. This is his first blockchain project. Their smart contract has been audited repeatedly and had been broken into repeatedly. The biggest issue with QANX is that their system has SecPTFix K1 on chain, and they use some Xlink off chain. Xlink is a MLDSA implementation, which is good lattice cryptography, as much as we can trust the NIST, but they don't actually lock the I don't have the source code because they don't release the source code. They don't have the transaction. They put the hash of the account inside the green light system. The green light system is only for the account. So it's just a race between the quantum attacker and the legitimate user. Worse, they say that they are putting a 24-hour green light. And so they're just leaving the car unlocked for 24 hours, hoping that no one drives it off. I've referred to this repeatedly on X and Twitter, or X and Telegram, saying you have two keys, one to unlock the door and one to unlock the engine. And the engine key will not be secure because it's, only linked to the security of a quantum attack. The, the door key is the X-Link, and X-Link means that your car is unlocked for 24 hours. After you drive it to the store, it's unlocked the entire time and you cannot lock it. So they need to put the actual transaction hash as the payload inside of Xlink, and then I'd be fine with it. It would be totally fine if they did that. They refuse. I don't know what to say. It's not secure the way that they built it. Quantum Coin is really odd. It's the original name was Doge Protocol, and it was the post-quantum version of Doge. And what they did instead of using the Doge code is that they used Go Ethereum, a 10-year-old copy of Go Ethereum, which has had 3 major security incidents, all of which were handled by the Ethereum Foundation, but not publicized in a way that made the people using Go Ethereum actually perform the necessary upgrades. This is not good. I went into their Discord and I talked with them. They're extremely rude. I suggested they needed to have an audit done because they can make tons of mistakes. And they shut it down and, muted me. Like that, fine. But the problem is that they've never had any audit of their cryptography and they refuse to do one. Their source code is public. Here's their header for the data storage. That is a link to their actual cryptography in their GitHub. And they're doing hybrid cryptography in an unaudited way. And they're doing hybrid cryptography in an unverified way. They're nesting the data backwards as far as I can tell, but without like a good checklist or a good audit trail or how do you do this properly, it's really hard to know. And it's something that we should all be extremely nervous about. So this is I list them as they implemented post-quantum cryptography, but it's unsafe. It's a problem. SoQCoin claims to only have SecPTFX-K1 involved in the bulletproofs, but the bulletproofs are the proof that you didn't like double spend and a couple other things. And so it's a necessary security mechanism. So even though they're using post-quantum cryptography for the wallet, the proof of what the wallet's doing is insecure. It's technically a hybrid, but they didn't do it right. And they're using SecPTFX-K1 in their source code, and their wallet refuses to build if you remove the SecPTFX-K1 section. So this is actually a paste of their GitHub. The problem here is that they need to use maybe, SHA-256 in a ZK Stark. They can probably do that, but they can't use bulletproofs for that architecture. They need to switch to a much slower and much more expensive architecture instead of this super fast, we'll have SecPTFX-K1 guarantee our post-quantum chain. That's a problem that they are not, properly addressing with the way that they've implemented the cryptography and implemented the trust and consensus in their chain. I have over 90 chains that I've identified as usually lying, usually often making mistakes like this where they're relying on elliptic curves in some way. Starknet is one of those. Starknet says, well, yeah, we're post-quantum, super easy. They have account abstraction built into every single wallet. This is good. This allows for them to migrate off of their custom elliptic curve that they call Stark. They named 4 different kinds of cryptography Stark on Starknet. by Starkware. They use the Stark curve, which then does transactions on StarkNet using ZK Starks. There's confusion when you name everything the same. It's like Smurfs, but the Smurfs had different nouns and only one verb. Just Smurf something. In this case, there's only one noun, and they use that noun for everything in their entire ecosystem. And one of the things that they use is Poseidon, which is an Ethereum Foundation tool. This is the recent attack against Poseidon using number theoretic transforms in the attack. The attack does not scale on silicon, but the quantum version of NTT, known as QNTT, solves all of the memory issues that they have as a problem in the silicon version of the attack. Basically, they didn't notice much performance increase switching from CPU to GPU. It was like a 3x increase. And the reason for that is just mostly memory bound. But when you do this in a quantum circuit, the qubits are very read-write performant. It's the measurement at the end that's the problem, but you only measure the circuit once. So the QNTT solves all of the scalability problems of the memory issues in NTT. The main distinction is that this isn't as cheap as Shor's, but it's not post quantum, but it's not as easy to attack as it is to attack elliptic curves. So it'll come in between RSA 2048 and breaking hashes at 160 bits using Grovers. Somewhere in between that, like 3 to 5 year range, you'll see attacks on Poseidon become viable. I haven't done QNTT as a quantum circuit. My quantum circuit skills are okay, but not that good. It would take me, I think, maybe like a week or two to figure out the quantum circuit for doing QNTT at the scale required. But again, Shor's is gonna break elliptic curves first, and then it'll break RSA, and then it will break. You'll be able to use QNTT to break Poseidon. There is a second curve used for a field that is used for Poseidon 1. Poseidon 1 may break faster than RSA 2048. So Poseidon 2 is what they're standardizing on. Poseidon 2 will break later. And this is just based off of qubit estimates. It's based off of how large the circuit is approximately. It's basically AI/napkin math. I can do it both ways, and I got the same around the same result both ways. It's not quantum safe. Most hashes are, but Poseidon is not most hashes. It's actually algebra. And that algebra now has an attack. Poseidon does not use NTT. The attack does. So that's a problem. Hedera lies, just flat out. They claim to have hybrid cryptography. They claim they can become post-quantum. They claim that they're post-quantum. They claim all sorts of things. They lie, just flat out. They're using, this is a copy of their source code. This is a link to their source code. It's SecP6K1, as you can clearly see. And they're claiming to be the post-quantum solution to Ethereum. I confronted them. Again, they lied. I showed them their claims because I, kept a copy of all of their marketing claims and their CTO on stage and on YouTube and all of these things, and he's claiming they're post quantum. He's lying, and most people there don't know it. Dragon Chain uses SecP256K1 also. They claim to be hybrid. They're doing a hash. They're not revealing the public keys on chain, but they're lying about the hybrid status. They don't use any post quantum cryptography at all. They're just using a hash. And it's one of those things that they will not admit to being a problem, but it's clearly a problem. So this is the last chain. Equilibrium used a NP complete problem that was theorized to be quantum safe. The problem was their implementation of the cryptography that had been considered quantum safe for the previous 7 years. 7 years later, someone figured out that their implementation was insecure and was able to break it on a laptop. This is why we need standards. This is why you should not trust any cryptography for the first 10 years after it is created. This was a 7-year later break, and it was a surprise to everybody. And so their value immediately hit zero. Just, it went from being a billions of dollars chain to literally zero immediately. And they admitted it. I mean, good on them, you know. They trusted something that was claimed and regarded to be safe. Here's the actual quantum resistance chains. KillVPN and Quantum EVM are both based off of Cellframe. Cellframe is crypto agile. It has 19 plus different pieces of cryptography already to just swap in. It's a wallet transaction. You don't even need to upgrade the wallet. You just transact from one cryptography type to another and you're done. We use MLDSA by default. At my urging, NTRU prime is included, which is the basis for Falcon. Falcon is also using the NTRU prime lattice, but they screwed up and did floating point over it, which is a bad idea. The Gaussian sampler is a bad thing. The reason that's bad is that the floating point allows you to attack the emulator and drain the private key by monitoring USB voltage draw. So your hardware-based security is just gone if you use Falcon. QRL doesn't upgrade their system even when you send them CVEs. I sent them like 30 CVEs and they refused to upgrade. These are known weaknesses, known exploits, and they're just refused to handle it. Archimo is a little minor chain. They're using hash-based cryptography, a version of XMSS that they kind of like home grew, and everything that they did non-standard, I consider an absolute win. I reviewed their cryptography for hours and hours and talked with the lead developer for hours and hours about this afterwards. I think it's solid. It's just using hash-based crypto. So they have no intention of going to smart contracts. The dev says he'll go to dumb contracts one day, you know, which is basically just having different transaction types like NFTs. And that's about it.